Okay, well, thank you, Stephen, for coming. Thank you, and for christening our new studio. So it was such a pleasure to meet you. I've been in BNI only 4 months, and I've already had 3 chapters. So I'm very, very happy that I landed in your chapter. I love it. It's small but mighty. We have a very great group of professionals, and I know you're one of the best for what I can see. So welcome. Thank you. How long have you been in BNI?
BNI, and thank you for having me in the podcast, Anna. And with BNI, I've probably been in BNI for 4 years. I was in another chapter previously, in Doral a little over a year ago. And just like you said, I mean, it's promising. I think we're small, but we have good intentions, and we'll continue growing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love it. Everybody's very involved and committed, so it's been good. And I love working with people that are just as committed as you are about your profession, because special meaning attorneys, realtors, there's so many that you have to know someone that you can trust, and having that trust, that what Kevin says every day. If I can hand you a client, they already trust me, so they're going to trust you. The same thing happens to me. There's a million realtors, so if you come by the hand of someone that knows them and trusts them, then it's so much better. So that's something that BNI does very, very well.
Agreed.
So since, in the BNI we talk every day, every week about what we do, I know exactly that what you do is so perfect for most of my clients, making sure that you have the right structure in everything when you buy or sell a home. Mm-hmm. So I told you about this client that I have right now that unfortunately she passed away, and she had a will, but she didn't have a trust. She didn't have kids, so the poor sister, who's almost 90 years old, has been battling with probate court since March. Wow. And draining her money, because she doesn't even get the money from the sister yet, because it's all tied up there. So she says, oh my God, I'm paying my bills, my sister's bills, the probate bills. It's very, very stressful. So I know there are ways for that to avoid that. So I would love for you to talk about a little bit about that.
Of course. So we generally focus in 3 areas of law. There's some exceptions with things, but we practice in the estate planning. So that encompasses wills, trusts, power of attorney, probate, business law. So we do contractual work for operating agreements, partnership agreements, setting up corporations, and then real estate. So we assist clients with closings, with residential or commercial. And, by nature, I don't think I'm a pessimist, but I've seen all too many times, and we've seen it as well, where someone passes away and now there's a GoFundMe for that person because they weren't, unfortunately, organized. And it's a morbid conversation, but I mean, I even recently decided, everyone knows the importance of car insurance, right? Because you might get into an accident, but death is certain, right? So why, unfortunately, we don't give it that importance and priority until a relative passes away. And that kind of springs us into action to be like, no, I need my estate planning done. To answer your question directly and specific, there are a handful of ways where you could avoid probate completely for a house, if it's a primary house. You could name it in life into a trust. You could add a individual on title as a beneficiary for a ladybird deed, meaning in life, the owner has full control. They could sell, they could buy, they could line of credit the house. Upon their demise, whoever's on title automatically gets title of it as a beneficiary. There's ways of placing it possibly in a corporation if it's an investment property. So there's a handful of ways that the name of the game is either you spend a little bit now protecting yourself, or your children or your beneficiaries are going to spend too much. Probate, it is it's a long process. Attorneys, we have statutory fees that we could receive. Some, you could see attorney fees over $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. And just like you said, there's people that have to spend the money and the court fees and then get reimbursed, but much further down the line. Or you see situations where beneficiaries, siblings, out of 10 times, it happens 10 times, they start fighting amongst themselves about inheritance or what's theirs. And unfortunately, at that point, everyone has to get legal representation, and it gets more costly. And they'll have to sell a house to satisfy court and attorney fees because things weren't properly placed in writing.
Absolutely.
So I know it's a lot.
Yeah. Well, the client that I told you that I told her about this, I said, I need that right now. It's because she remembered that when she sold her parents' house, she had to pay $12,000 in attorney fees for the probate. And also it lasted a long time. Said, thankfully you had it, because also there might be people that don't have $12,000 to just, hand out before getting the whatever their the inheritance. So
Correct.
So it's really, really important.
Mm-hmm. And I respect the real estate profession a lot. And advantage is not the right word, but sometimes, unfortunately, you see people that are in a distressed situation sell a house on probate for pennies on the dollars because they can't upkeep the property taxes, the insurance, the outstanding mortgage. So someone comes in, and it's not even a realtor. Sometimes it's an investor. And they'll say, hey, look, for 1/3 of the price, 1/4 of the price, I'll buy it out cash. And, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. Yes, this lady she gets 100 letters every day wanting to buy for cash. And, like you said, 1/3 of the price or less. So definitely. So tell us, okay, you said that about the probate. You mentioned a corporation. That's also very important for national as well as international, correct? You can do corporations here for international buyers that also helps them protect a little bit more their assets.
Absolutely. So the understanding that people should have, and of course, every case is different, every person is different, but let's assume if you're a Florida resident, even a citizen, and you have your primary house, you could have it homesteaded. And the period of time to do so is January to March of every year. Now, a homestead classification exemption, it reduces your property taxes, but there's Florida Constitution that says outside of mortgage situation or property taxes or a construction lien, no one could come after your main property. There's people that have done bankruptcy with a property that's worth a lot. So even if you get into a personal dispute, a personal auto accident, a business dispute, they cannot touch your primary house. That being said, any house aside of your primary house, if it's under your name, it's fair game. Whether you have it rented out and something happens with the tenant inside, which I've seen happen with other people, a slip and fall, or even if the tenant invites a guest over and an incident occurs, they're going to want to sue you. And the situation is that the house now is under your personal name and its assets, and they're going to want to have a field day on that. So the idea is to, look, there's different ways to do it, but the most easiest is just set up an LLC. You register with Sunbiz. You get an EIN number if you receive any rent to open up a bank account. You do a transfer of title if the house is already under your name. You do a quitclaim deed. Or if it's before closing, you could set up the LLC prior, and the title then will come out on the name of the LLC. It's better for privacy purposes. Well, you go onto the property appraisal, you won't see your name as an individual, and it just makes it a little bit harder to, against a lawsuit and things of that nature.
Of course. Mm-hmm. What other things that you see, what other horror stories or cautionary tales that people should think about? Because I had another person from BNI, actually, a different type of attorney, but he says, everybody thinks of me when everything happens, when everything's already a mess. Mm-hmm. You should try to be a little bit more proactive and not get into the desperate stage, right? There's a lot of things that I'm sure you can help them with that they don't have to be in a dire situation to do it, to work with you.
Correct. So, in law, there's kind of two camps. There's the transactional camp, and then there's the litigating world. And what we kind of try to do is preventative, right? So we say, what's the point of getting to the situation where you have an extreme lawsuit or something happens, an act of negligence, or you don't have insurance coverage, and now you're facing a $100,000 judgment or settlement? Whereas opposed to if you took the proper steps prior, incorporating yourself, having operating agreements. If you have partners, have extensive partnership agreements. You see things in the real estate space where oh, I'm going to buy a property and my cousin lent me $100,000 to buy into the property, but there's no agreement. Or even if there is agreement, but my cousin's not on title of the property. So how does he really secure his interest in that asset? Because the day of tomorrow, I could refi or I could sell it, and I don't have to bring in part of the conversation. And that's where, unfortunately, a lot of disputes come in play. If I have a client, they say that, look, they're looking to invest $10,000 on a project through the construction of it, through anything. I'm like, I want you on title. Because that way, when closing comes, they need your authorization to release. Or if you get into a dispute and it's recognized that you're owed $10,000 on a project and you're on title, well, on closing, they have to disperse and release your funds to then the sale to be completed. So in writing, long story short.
Yes, everything in writing.
Yep.
And now that you mentioned in pre-construction, what do you do you have any opinion about buying in pre-construction? They have those contracts that is take it or leave it. It's not like you can change anything. So I don't know if, my clients have bought a lot, but I don't know if they're probably just covering the developer in every which way.
Yeah, so it's a unique space, and it's a situation where, look, you'll in northern Florida on the border of Georgia, there's penny on the dollar lots. Granted, you could buy them, but how long is it going to take to develop the area? Now, if you are going to do something in pre-construction, it's a place that looks promising. Non-legal advice, but I've heard even stories where if you see that they're building a hospital or schools nearby or shopping centers, and that's promising to try to buy around that area because it's being developed. Right. But I think homeowners don't only go by professionals, including us. Do your due diligence on the construction company, the developer, right? Lamar is not the same as Pepito from Hialeah.
Right.
See how long their history track. You could go online to see if there's any cases against them. And just try to do their due diligence to the best of their knowledge.
What exactly is probate?
So probate is a court proceeding that, aside if a person has a trust, and in life they recognize a trust to their main property or their different assets, whether they be bank accounts, company interests, or as I mentioned, if someone is on title as a beneficiary, a ladybird deed, a life enhancement, those are ways to avoid the probate process. But in general, even if you say, hey, look, someone has a father and there's 2 kids, the father passed away. Okay, but the kids weren't on title. So the court has to get involved and they have to determine if there was a will or not a will. If there is no will, then it goes by Florida statute on how the asset gets distributed. So there's laws protecting spouses, elective shares. So that means that if one spouse, especially even better if both spouses are on title and the title reads with joint right of survivorship. But even then, generally the remaining spouse receives the inheritance. And again, this is case-by-case basis. If there's children involved, then they receive the 50%. The widowed spouse receives 50%. Where it gets complicated is if there's underage children involved, if assets have to be held until they're of age. So again, it is a lengthy process, and it's unfortunate because I've seen scenarios where people have $5,000 on a bank account, and unfortunately they didn't have a listed beneficiary or the trust as a listed beneficiary, and that money has to go to probate. And unfortunately, sometimes the fees is more than what the asset is left behind. So that's why in life is good to just double check, make sure you have beneficiaries on all your accounts, your power of attorneys. Heaven forbid someone finds themselves incapacitated, who can make medical, financial decisions on your behalf. And then upon a demise, what are the instructions that you would like to leave in place? If you have underage children and you go, all right, I have an outstanding mortgage and let me get a life insurance policy that the trust is the beneficiary and the trust has the instructions to pay out the outstanding mortgage. Make sure that the property taxes are already paid or are always paid. make sure my kid has always a roof over their head until they're 30 years old, and then that's when they receive title of the house. So heaven forbid if something happens, an untimely demise, you're not in a situation where either the child is underage or they're 18 and they get a title of a house of $1 million and they can misspend it.
Right.
Or they even get proceeds from a life insurance, but there's no instructions to pay the mortgage. So they can misspend the life insurance proceed, they don't pay the mortgage, and then they could be out of a house and funds. So
Right.
it is to avoid all that, those scenarios.
And I mean, if you have a will, because well, I know Venezuela is completely different than here, but like if you have a will, and you are the descendants of the deceased, it just goes to you.
It does, but it still goes to probate as well.
It does have to.
It does have to go to probate. It does have to go to probate, and then again, what you could save on attorney fees, which could be
Right.
you could just easily by doing a trust or listing them on title from the inception. And a will is good, but once the individuals that are listed there, they receive their assets, then that's it. But if you want to be very conditional and saying, look, the age intervals that we're discussing, or I would want them to always have a house, education, medical expenses paid for, it would be through a trust.
You can work also with international buyers. They can buy just the same and
Correct.
just create the structure as it has to be. I know I have clients that do some structures that are like super complicated. I don't know if that's really necessary. Like I have people that buy many properties and they have like one LLC for each one, and then that one goes like to a parent trust, and it's done in Delaware or something like that.
We do that as well. And I would say for 75% of our clients, that's what we do recommend, because the situation is, one, and let's assume it's not the primary house. Let's assume we're talking about investment properties. Having them under your name is no good. The second best option, I guess, is having an LLC, even if there's multiple properties there. That being said, now you're grouping together risk, because if something happens in one property, it's going to affect the other ones,
Right.
because they're in one corporation. And just like I said initially, where it's really a cost-benefit game. Now, to continue a corporation, a LLC, every year, annual reports are like $150. Any small accounting expense that your accountant would charge you, even though these are single-member entities and they could go on your personal tax returns. There's different ways. But the risk of having a house that nowadays there's no house, the medium house, I'm assuming, $500,000, to have two of them in one LLC just doesn't make sense for me in terms of cost. That being said, if I have a client that owns 20 properties, having 20 LLCs might not be feasible. So is it better that he has 6 of them and he has 3 properties in each? He makes sure he has umbrella insurance, has renter's insurance, property insurance. Then he might be okay with that,
And why have the parent trust or whatever be the parent of all the other ones? Is that a way to, I don't know, for them to?
Well, so that's a way that legally you could have the trust recognized in the properties and vice versa in the event of a demise.
Oh, okay.
So if I could use myself as a scapegoat. If I have 3 investment properties, okay, ideally I would have them in LLCs. But if I don't recognize the trust in life of those LLCs, those properties, and those properties don't recognize a holding company or a trust, they could go to probate as well.
Oh.
So the idea is to create like an umbrella where you just plug and play. We have clients that in the inception, they put initials on the LLCs of the properties. They'll go ALR, R23, but it gets to a point where it gets out of hand and they get confused. So we start giving them the recommendation of using the part of the address as an LLC. So it's not the same as 123 Brickell Ave LLC. And, once you have enough properties, you'll be easily to ascertain it. If you do your own property management, you'll know, okay, which one's tenants who. it's a little bit cleaner in that aspect.
Right, that's a good idea.
You know.
That's a good idea. Well, tell us another part of your business that we haven't talked about. I know there's a million, but like the business one that I know that what you were talking to Kevin about when you actually work with actual corporations, not like only like ghost corporations, but.
Okay. So, you know, I grew up in South Florida, in the supermarket space. And through that, I've been fortunate of retaining a lot of friends and family at this point in that industry. So we service a lot of supermarkets, restaurants, GCs, brick and mortar operating business, on people that own businesses online. And it's a scenario where you'd be surprised that an individual that owns a laundry and someone that owns a restaurant, they have a lot of things in common in terms of employee situations, labor disputes, a contractual vendor agreement. So it gets to the point in the beginning, a business owner used to reach out to me and for a lease renewal. And okay, he throws it my way. I gain his trust. And then after that, he's like, all right, let's talk about my estate planning. Because some people have reservations in the beginning.
Of course.
So we deal, heavily with landlord-tenant dispute, leases, negotiating it. But I always tell my clients, if you have the opportunity, try to negotiate yourself directly, because you're the one that's going to be seeing the landlord every month. For renewals, for options, for matters of CAM, it's better that you speak to each other directly, because the attorneys were not going anywhere. But if he has his attorney involved and I get involved, sometimes we even create more friction than need be. And I even tell my clients, look, I'll help you indirectly with certain things. But then if I officially appear, then it might complicate the scenario. So
even the lessee also gets an attorney, because I understand. I mean, I've seen it like the owner of the business does, but also if the person that rents it also.
Correct. Well, legally in Florida, if you're a company, corporation, LLC, you cannot represent yourself in legal matters. Even more so when it's litigating in court, but the idea is to avoid that.
Right.
So, and since the inception, if you hire an attorney, it's easier for them to see the track history. And unfortunately, even if it has to get litigated, well, at least you involve someone from the beginning that knows every step of the way.
Wow.
So.
Thank you so much for coming. This was super enlightening. I know I learned a lot, and I'm sure all my clients that I've already talked to them about this. I know everybody is dying to do things the right way to make sure that we don't end up like my poor neighbor. So thank you for coming, Stephen.
Thank you for having me.
To see you every week, and I hope we can work together again very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is my first ever podcast, so thank you.
Wow.
And I look forward to, having a professional working relationship with you as well.
Absolutely.
I think realtors, good ones, just like you said early on. Unfortunately, just like attorneys, we're not too common. The space is getting a little bit saturated, but when you come across someone that really cares, you could tell. So thank you as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Definitely, we're going to be working together.
Perfect.
Thank you, and have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you for coming.